start the session once again saying the Heartsutra mantra together several times. Same purpose. First, we will use the sound of the mantra as an object to focus our mind. In order to focus on the sound of the mantra, to make sure our mind is right here and now and fully alert. And the second purpose is, again, to create an atmosphere, feeling of that the Buddha is present, and receiving blessings and inspiration from the Buddha to understand, to realize this, the teaching that he gave in order to understand emptiness. So we will say the mantra for those two purposes.
God.
Oh, yeah. Now we are looking at this first group list, group which is called 5 aggregates, which are, in that group there are 5 aggregates. And within that so far we have looked at the first aggregate, which is this solid, physical, the form. And we look at mainly from the Buddhist understanding about the form, this physical, solid body, But you can look at, my presentation is more from the Buddhist understanding but you can look at, you can view or understand or examine as a physical body that we have got here from the Western understanding, Western physics or whatever biologists from their point of view. You can look at from their point of view and see, understand what is here as a so-called body, so-called name as the rupa, rupakaya, or so in Tibetan, in English, form. So what is that? That so-called form, physical body. You can look at it from the Western, physics, biologists, their point of view. The point, what we will get, from which angle, I'm sure, if you look at it from the Western scientists, the angle, viewpoint, I'm sure you will reach at the same conclusion. The conclusion could be this, can be this. So-called form, rupakaya, the body. It is, so many things, so many particles, so many substances, so many, the things come together, that gathered, that aggregate, that group. On that gathered, then labeled, called form, called rupakaya. You will find it. I'm sure you will get the same conclusion as those by the Buddha and subsequently Buddhist teachers going through the building blocks, of this physical body, and going through that, looking at all the parts, all the building blocks, and then what they have reached conclusion on this gathered, these so many multiple things gathered, then labeled, called form. Form, rupakaya, rupa, the rupa, no more than that gathered. Not more than that label, that the label on this gathered. And within the gathered, each building blocks of this physical body, each particles, each the particle, each substance, if you look at one by one, have the same kind of structure, same kind of structure. And the particles, atoms, all these come together, then so-called particle, so-called atom, so-called, whatever in Buddhist term, the solidity, earth, the great earth, great water, so on and so forth. Just, that label. On the other hand, if I put it now, on the other hand, what you will not find, you will not find such as form, some kind of, what you call the, you will not find, what you will not find is this, as a form, the first aggregate, you will not find some kind of, some kind of substantial, I'll choose this term, substantial entity as a form. You will not find that. I've chosen this particular term today. I think I have chosen the same last my visit. What you will not find a substantial entity as a form. What you will find, what you will see, what you will find out, form aggregate as a multi things, substances come together, and on that, this label, this term called form. You will find that. What you will not find as a form, as a substantial entity or nature as a form. Now, you might be thinking about what is that substantial entity. Now, the substantial entity, in the sense of substantial, in the sense of not dependent on these building blocks, of that solidity called form. Substantial. If it is substantial, if there is a substantial entity form, what you will see, what you will see, or what you will be found as a form, you will be found as a form, some kind of, not dependent on these building blocks of these building blocks of physical body, or this form body. Are you following with me? I will repeat again. I will say again. This is something important now. From which angle you look at, from the Buddhist viewpoint, building blocks such as four great elements, then the five derivative forms as we explained, or from the Western scientist, biologist point of viewpoint. When you look at here as a form, as a body, what you will see, what you will find out, form or the body, which, the multi things, multi atoms, the particles come together on that labeled name called form, called body. That you will find that. What you will not find, what you will not see, you will not find out form or the body as a the substantial entity, substantial nature. So now, what does it mean, substantial entity or nature, which we will not see as a form as that nature, form as that entity? substantial entity or substantial nature in the sense of the form, the body, which is not dependent on these multi atoms or particles or building blocks. That's what you will not see as a form. So that is here which you need to look at. What we are doing here, we are doing actually two things. In parallel, we are working two things. First, do you remember that the first what we are doing is we try to see, understand I, the self, or the me, is not unitary nature or entity. That's what first thing. The first what we are trying to understand here is the I or the self or the me is not a unitary nature or entity that we normally believe, that we normally assume, the self or the I is in that kind of entity, unitary nature. That's what we are trying to understand, one thing. Parallel to that, what we are trying to see, what we're trying to understand, the nature of each aggregate. The nature of each aggregate. There are 5 aggregates. Do you remember? 5 aggregates. So the learning the 5 aggregate, the first point is we try to understand self or the I is not in a unitary nature. That's the one, which is overall when we are learning the 5 aggregates. The reason of the learning the 5 aggregates one by one. But when we are looking at individually, what we are doing is individually the nature, in this case, the nature of the form aggregate. How the form aggregate, how does form aggregate exist? Do you get it or you don't get it? If you don't get it, tell me, saying I don't get it what you're talking about. Do you want me to repeat again? Or you get already bored? You get bored, that's good. So, I will not repeat then. I will come back again. We'll come back again. Now, briefly look at the second aggregate. Which is feeling. Now, also maybe good to say this. From the Western understanding, what is here, at least in general understanding, although scientists they may dispute this, but in general understanding, what is here, there are 2 things, physical and the non-physical, which is consciousness or the mind. Of course, scientists may dispute that mind is part of the brain and the brain function. There's nothing separate from the body, from the mind, from the brain. But the general people, like you and me, we may say there are 2 things: physical body, or then you may say spirit, or you may say the mind. There are 2 things. And in the Buddhist literature, these 2 things is a little bit elaborated. The first one, physical body, we just discussed. Now the second one, so-called mind, then put into 4 things. 4 things are this: feeling, as you can see, feeling, discrimination, conversational factors, and consciousness. In the what we usually say, oh, what is here? There are two things, body and the mind. That's what normally we say, isn't it? So now body we briefly look at. Now the mind, so-called mind, normally in the Buddhist literature, that is a little bit elaborated into four, saying the feeling, discrimination, conversational factors, and consciousness. Okay? Before I go a little bit detail, first, before look at the feeling, look at this. I want to give you slightly different two terms, two labels, the third one and fourth one. In here, I don't know in German, in English here the term is used, the third one, discrimination. Discrimination. The term is used discrimination, but some translators, third one is called conception. Okay? Conception. Third one.
Sorry, in Croatian, perception.
Yeah, sometimes called perception, conception, perception, changeable.
But
it's different. But in terms of in here, they use both. But the perception or conception, you can use both. The translator used different terms in here for the discrimination. I will talk to you detail what is this. But I just want to give you other options of translation. Fourth one, here the term is used conversational factors. Some translators use formation. Some translators use. Or some translators use volition. So there are different translations. This third one and fourth one. Okay? Now just first look at those terms. Now, these remaining four aggregates are particularly first, second, third, and fifth. Fourth one has lots of discussions. First, leave it. These three, the feeling, and here use discrimination, consciousness. These three are looking at particular mental states. Within us, in here, so-called mind, in the Buddhist literature, mind is just general, but it is explained in two categories. Now you need to listen to this. I know it's very boring, but you need to listen to this. In the Buddhist literature, Abhidhamma, in the Abhidhamma literature, very early Buddhist literatures, in the Abhidhamma literature, when they explain the mind, so-called mind in English, or consciousness, or those different terms, consciousness, mind, whatever, is explained in two categories in the Buddhist literature. Two categories are called main mind, chit in Sanskrit, main mind, and called mental factor. Okay? Main mind and the mental factor. Now, first drop this one. Main mind, leave it this. Will come. This one, the second one, called mental factor. There are so many numbers of mental factors. Mental factors are individual mind has an individual functions. That's why it's called mental factors. individual minds have individual functions. They are called, therefore called mental factors. Now in the mental factor, although there are so many, but in the Buddhist literature it put into number 52. There are so many, more than 52, but to understand the most important mental factors in the Buddhist literature, they are saying 52. Out of 52, in here, mention only 2. Out of 52, in the mental factor, drop this one. Now, are you following with me? 5 aggregates. Form we already taught. This, leave it. Now they are left 3. Out of 3 aggregates, mental aggregates, out of 3, 2 are mental factors, these 2. So out of 52, only 2 mental factors are mentioned in here. What are the 2? Feeling and discrimination. Big headache now.
Why?
Sorry?
Why only these 2?
Yeah, I have no idea. You should ask Buddha. No. Now, two mental factors are. Now, first we'll look at this one, feeling. Feeling is a particular mental factor, a particular mind, particular what's called function. The function is to feel, to experience, to feel pain, pleasure, neutral. That is the function of feeling, and that's what we have got. In a day-to-day life, in an everyday life, that we feel pain, we feel pleasure, we feel joy, we feel happiness, or in a more super mundane level. If some of you may do great meditations, you may feel joy, you may feel pleasure, and some of you may experience great realization, you may feel happiness, joy. Whatever, in which, from what that you experience, pain, pleasure, neutral, is because of feeling, not because of you. Not because of you. This is very, very important. Not because of me. It is because of feeling. It's nothing to do with me. It is just because of this mental factor is present within us. If that mental factor, so-called feeling, is not present, I will not feel anything. Now the feeling is, what I feel, pain, pleasure, joy, happiness, neutral. As you said, feeling neutral, it is because of this mental factor, not it is because of I. Very, very important to understand. Do you remember that? To understand there are 2 purposes. The first purpose is to reduce, to minimize that wrong notion of I as a unitary entity. To reduce that notion, we have to differentiate I and the feeling. These 2 are different. I is the mental factor. Feeling is the mental factor which experience pain, pleasure, so on and so forth. Although we say, oh yeah, I am happy. We say, oh yeah, I'm not happy. But it is not I. it is that feeling. But we say that I am happy, I'm not happy, I have pleasure, I have no pleasure. It is not I which experience, it is this mental factor called feeling. You have to think. This may shock you when you say that. How can you dare to say that? I'm not experiencing pain, pleasure. But actual, what experience pain, pleasure is this mental factor. The function of this mental factor, is to experience it. Then the third one, discrimination. The term here, discrimination, is used. Earlier I said there are different terms such as perception, conception is used. It is again a particular mental factor. Particular mental factor. Mental factor in the sense, a mind which has a particular function. The function is that our sense consciousnesses, the eyes, ears, soul, and mental consciousness. These consciousnesses, they act with their objects. And when they act with their objects, when they perceive their objects, to differentiate this from that, here from there, she from he, to differentiate is the function of this mental factor called so-called discrimination or conception or perception. It is the mental factor, not the I, discriminate. Good to bad, right or wrong, the white from black, yellow from, No, it is this mental factor. Although we think, we feel, we believe, I discriminate, I can differentiate from this, the cheap shop to very expensive shop. I can discriminate from this very well-respected label to this nothing. But discrimination is not by I, not made by I, it is made by this mental factor. So therefore, it is very important to differentiate. I and this mental factor. Discrimination is done by this mental factor, not the I. Okay? Very, very important. So these two, out of 52, you ask question, out of 52, these two are mentioned. Why? There are some reasons. Some great teachers explain, the reasons. There are reasons. First of all, Tsoa, the feeling, is extremely powerful mental factors, extremely powerful events in our everyday lives. What is said is, the ordinary people, run, rush, fight, to have more pleasure, to avoid more sufferings. That's what they do. If you, I'm sure in Vienna you may have, if in London, as I'm sure many of you have been in London, this in the high street called Oxford Street, and in that street there is a particular area called Oxford Circus, Oxford Circus, and last year they made they sort of redesigned that circus, and what they have made is like a Japanese style. In Japan, in Tokyo, there is a very famous cross, zebra cross. They call, in English they call zebra cross, white, then people are. So they have the same idea in London. They brought that idea in order to have a traffic flow and also people flowing very smoothly. And last year they spent millions of pounds just to make that bed. But it is very, very nice. One of the corner there is a cafe, Costa Cafe up the third floor. So you can go up there and look down. When people cross, it is just amazing to see that, rushing, running. So, why they do that? Why all these people are rushing and running? Just for these two reasons. One, to have more happiness, to avoid more suffering. So this is very powerful. This, out of so many mental factors, the feeling is extremely powerful. That's why it is mentioned. Powerful in the sense of that pulls this mental factor, feeling pulls us, drives us mad. To have more happiness, more pleasure, and try to avoid all the difficulties, pains, and so on. So feeling is mentioned because it's very powerful mental factors. Discrimination is mentioned out of 52. Again, similar reasons. Because discrimination, make us to, what you call as earlier I put it, to bring together or reject it. That is because of discrimination. And this pulling and rejecting is a very, very powerful process in our living. In certain extents, if we don't have this mechanism, pulling towards us certain things, rejecting from us certain things, life will be extremely boring. Extremely boring. If we don't have that mechanism. And that is done based on discrimination. If there isn't this mental factor, discrimination mental factor, then pulling and rejecting will not happen. So, just one of the answer why these two are mentioned, and like a little bit side issue, but to say that. Now that we reach in this one, number 4. That is very, very confusing one. Number 4, aggregate. Number 4. Here the term is used, compensational factor. In here, in the aggregate number 4, all the remaining 50 mental factors. Do you remember? There are 52 mental factors. 2 are gone, now 50 remain. All the remaining 50 mental factors are in this number 4. Now, I want you to think. You to think. Please don't fall into sleep. I want you to think. Now here. So far, when we look at here, we look at physical form, we look at feeling, we look at discrimination. We haven't looked at, but we already counted consciousness. And also I said in here, remaining 15 mental factors are in here. Can you think anything which is in here, which is here as a, existing in here, but not counted so far? Do you understand my question? We counted the body, physical, now that's gone. We counted feeling, we counted discrimination, we counted consciousness, which I will come a little bit detail later, and also we counted remaining 50 mental factor here. Now, can you think anything which is, you think it is here in the sense of in this existence, but not included so far, not counted so far? Biscuit? Anything can you think? Yeah. Sorry? Space. Okay, space. Very good thinking. Is there space in here?
Yes.
Very good thinking. Okay, space. Any other thing? Any other thing? Ignorance. You are right. I didn't say one by one. Ignorance is one of here, the 50. Do you remember that 52, 2 is counted, and the remaining 50 is in here. So you're right. I didn't say one by one, but ignorance is one of them out of 50. Because out of 50, there's a group, one group is called 6 root affliction. And the 6 root affliction, first is ignorance. So ignorance is in here. But good suggestion, but it is in here. Out of 50, one of them.
Sorry, I don't have the question because I was checking the words. I don't understand so good English.
Yes.
And
good.
I was to try the words.
Okay. Now, question is this. We have seen body, we have seen feeling, discrimination, consciousness, and also in here, remaining 50 mental factors. We already counted what is in here. What is in here. Now, can you think anything which is here but not included in here so far? Not mentioned, not included. Do you get
What
it?
is where?
What is here as an existence?
Yeah,
Not just the form, mind and form, what we call in here. What do you think it is here? It is exist in here, but not counted
in 52.
In this 5 Soha.
In Allgemeinen. Nicht nur in dem einen, sondern in den Ganzen.
Oh.
In den Ganzen.
Yeah.
Ja. Also nicht nur in den 50.
I will tell you one. How about aging? Is it physical? Aging? Aging. Getting old.
Getting old, yeah. Älter.
Getting old. What do you think? It is physical?
No. But effect is physical.
Sorry?
Effect is physical.
If not effect, I'm not talking about effect. Again, effect is not physical, it's more feeling. I'm getting old.
But how we can we see that also, like old.
I'm getting more grey hair.
Yes.
That's not aging. It is the sign of aging.
A sign.
Just aging. What do you think about aging? What do you think about what do you think about death?
But this.
What do you think about your name? Name. Yeah. It's not counted in here, so is it?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at something not counted so far. How about pain?
That is my feeling.
Pain. Oh, no. Feeling and pain are different. Feeling is subject. Pain is what is to be felt.
Mm-hmm.
These two are different.
Mm-hmm.
How about pleasant? There are so many.
Concept.
Sorry?
Concept or thinking.
Okay. Do you mean it's just concept, therefore?
Yeah, it's just...
But they exist.
Yeah.
They exist, don't
Yeah.
they? That's important. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Something exists, but not physical, also not consciousness.
But very relative. That concept is completely.
Sorry?
Concept is completely so relative. Is
Whatever it can be, relative or non-relative or whatever you say, what I'm looking at the moment, what I'm trying you to raise your awareness is this. Something exists in here, but not the physical body, also not the mind. That's what I'm trying to get from you. Sorry?
The breathing? Das Atmen?
The breathing.
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 The breath,
Breathing. Okay. Breathing is form.
Oh, okay.
But then it's aging also form.
Sorry?
Then it's aging also form.
Aging.
Yeah,
No.
getting
Aging.
because it's fire, it's ripening.
Sorry?
It's the fire element. It's getting ripening. It's
That when you look at the ripening, you are talking about fundamental base. But as an aging, it's not. It is, as she's pointed out, it is mere concept. Aging is concept. Thinking. Okay, now, if you said thinking, then you have to make very clear. Are you talking about the mind itself? The thinking mind?
No.
Or just thinking?
Yeah.
Anyway, this is not that important, but it is good to know. Good to know. In here, within us, in here, it is not just mind and the body. We need to understand. It is not just here. What we have got here is not just mind and body. There are things which are not mind, which are also not body. That's important. That's simply for that purpose I am trying you to look in what's called raise your awareness. Such as name, Tashi. Tashi is not mind. Tashi is not body. Isn't it? Monk is not body, it's not mind. But Tashi exists, monk exists. Aging, death, sickness, they all are here. Birth, but they are not physical, also they are not mental. Now, Once again, I'm raising my 5 fingers. Now, all those things are in here, in this 4th aggregate. In other words, in this 4th aggregate, there are so many things. Do you remember, as I said earlier? So many things. First of all, remaining 50 mental factors, including ignorance, faith, so on and so forth. All those 50 mental factors. On top of that, all those which are not physical, which are also not mind, are in this aggregate. Therefore, this aggregate is called compositional factor. Compositional factor. In Tibetan, it is called duje. Duje. Or is sometimes translated saying formation. Formation. Duje. Or sometimes it is translated volition. Volition. Volition means pushing. Pushing to happen, make it happen. Volition. Formation. These are same concept. In Tibetan term is called duje. Duje literally means do, means come, make to come, make to come together. That is the Tibetan meaning of Tibetan term, duje. Cheva means make, do means gathered. In other words, make come together. So in this aggregate, there are so many things. So many things. Now, what here in this here, as I put it out, birth, sickness, aging, and death are in this aggregate. Name, all those things are here. Space, all these things are in here. So once again, I want to remind you, looking at this, in this aggregate there are so many things. So aging is not I, or I is not aging, I is not death, I is not sickness, I is not birth, I is not ignorance, so on and so forth. They all have individual things in here, in this aggregate. What that will tell us, first of all, that will tell us, that I is not a unitary entity. There are so many things in here. And if you look at even each one of them, if you look at the aging, and the other mental factor, ignorance, they all come into being. How they come into being, so many different things come together, so-called aging. Gray hair, wrinkles, can't stand up straight away, or so and so, aging. What's called the genes or whatever, skin, those particles they cannot repair by themselves, aging. No more, no less. Isn't it? I am 53 years old man. No, not 53, 52. 52 years old man. I am 52. That's our language. That's what we use, our language. But I is not 52 years old. What is 52 years old?
The aggregates.
This body. The moment I was born, up to now, it's 52, this body. But I said, I am 52 years old man. We sort of try to put together these individual events, individual things, individual activities. We try to make some kind of unitary as an I. And that is wrong. Yeah? No. Left only one. Then guarantee I will leave you in peace.
It's not to worry.
Now what we left is the last one, consciousness. Out of 5 aggregates, the last aggregate is consciousness. Consciousness, as do you remember I said, when the Buddhist literatures, Abhidhamma text, they explain consciousness or the mind in general, they explain it in 2. Main mind and the mental practice. Mental practice we already look at. Now the main mind, or the consciousness you call it, the very precise translation is main mind. Main minds in Buddhism, there are 6 main minds. Main minds. 6 main minds are 5 sense consciousnesses, 5 sense consciousnesses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body. 6th is the mental consciousness. Mental consciousness. The difference is because of the object. The sense consciousnesses, objects are form. Do you remember earlier I said form? Form doesn't mean only shape and colors. Form in the sense of shapes and colors, smell, taste, sound, tactile. Those are what we call the external objects. These are the objects of sense consciousnesses. And the mental consciousness object is not the external objects. Not the external objects, it is called the the mental consciousness, the 6th one, which is called mental consciousness, the object is called, I'm searching a particular term which not cause you more problem. That's why yeah. Literal translation from Tibetan is other than the 5 sense objects. That's the literal translation. Other than the 5 sense objects. Is there anything can you think about? Mm-hmm. Can you think about anything which can be the object, but not one of the 5 sense objects? Do you understand my question? Mm-hmm. Can you think anything?
Memory.
Sorry?
Memory. A picture of a memory.
Okay, which picture now I want to know?
My room.
Sorry?
My
Your
room.
room. Okay. Isn't it form?
No, because it's a mental.
Yeah.
Just
Isn't it has shape?
Yeah, but it's different in the shape in
But it has shape.
Yeah,
No, it didn't form.
but it's a different if I can touch
It
it or
doesn't
not.
matter. It doesn't matter whether it's different or not. If it is shape, it must be formed.
But it doesn't have to form in my memory, in my consciousness.
That doesn't matter. As long as if it is shape, that is enough. Whether it's shape outside there or whether it's shape in your mind. As long as it is shape, it is formed.
But the perception is different because the form I see with my eye consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And if I close my eyes, I still see it, but it's another consciousness
Yeah.
perceiving it. No?
No. Now, the point here is, which is an object which is not these five sense objects. Five sense objects are shapes and colors, smell, taste, tactile, and sound. So in your hand, in your mind, image of your room is shape. So that's it. You don't argue now.
Okay.
Anything can you think?
Yeah, there's that one that glues all these things together. It's like consciousness which is noticing all these senses, or no?
There isn't.
Okay.
There isn't because there isn't a thing which all these five together.
Yeah, okay. But there's something that is putting me together and gives us the feeling of I see this.
Okay. I mean, there are many other things which are not and nothing related with the shapes and colors. How about time?
Oh.
Time. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But time is not one of these five, are they? Yeah, how about the time? But there are so many things. I will not go. There are so many things.
Please, just one more time.
One more thing.
Because time, what we can know, what give more?
Yeah, I'll tell you more if you want more. How about ethics? Ethics. Moral, yeah.
All conceptual and non-perceptual things.
Now, perceptual things. If you want to go into perceptual things, then you have to look at more refined, if you say, ethics. Then you need to look at perception, and you have to look at more refined nature of ethics. Anyway. Now, there are only 6 main consciousness or the main mind. 6. Only 6. No more, no less. 52 mental factors. Now, I want to look at these 6. We will look at in the next there. Can you see? In the next group, eye, ear, nose, tongue. Can you see in the next group? We will look at a little bit detail there, the 6 consciousnesses. Look at a little bit more there, but just to make the conclusion. So far, what we have looked at, we have looked at the first group, the first category, which is the aggregate. There are 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates. Now, why it is so important to know the 5 aggregates? two reasons. The main reason is to reduce, to minimize our wrong notion of I or the self, that I or the self exists in here, some kind of unitary nature, unitary entity. If you learn, actually there are 5 aggregates in here. Each one have their own activity. Each one have their own function. If we learn like this, what that will do, that will reduce the concept of I as some kind of unitary. That's the first reason. Second reason is, as I said earlier, we have so many wrong notions of this, the identifying ourselves into our feeling, into our shapes and colors. I'll repeat that. Listen. I'll repeat that. Listen. Very often, we identify ourselves into our feelings. As I said, I am not well. I am well. I am happy. I am unhappy. That language, what that language does, that language identify ourselves into that feeling. And not that language, but also in our mental level, in our mental state, we believe that I am the feeling of sad. I am the feeling of happiness. And that is wrong. Now that also we identify ourselves very often with the shapes and the colors. Do you know what I mean? Identify means, that I as this shape, I as this color. Wrong. So that is the reason here to looking at aggregates. These are not I. Shape is not I. Feeling is not I. Color is not I. I discriminate, I differentiate from that person. That differentiation is not I. Very, very useful. Useful to understand I as it is. Now, one last, then I will give you time to ask question. Now, last thing, the second point out of 2 reasons. The first reason is to reduce the wrong notion of I. The second reason is to understand individual aggregates as they are, not messed up. Not messed up with the form aggregate. Form aggregate, when we say form, there isn't a form such as some kind of independent. Form aggregate, form is simply combination or the multi sort of what you call the genes or the substances come together, then we, for our convenient reason, we label form. Convenient Do you remember? Have you heard? Convenient reason. Convenient in the sense of socially to interact. Then we call form. No more, no less. Convenient for the practical reason. Did you get it? Convenient, I'll tell you. If you and me, if you don't speak Tibetan and I don't speak English, we have a big problem to do even the small basic task. To say, if I want a cup of tea, if I don't have the language cup, language tea, and although a fully grown-up lady in front of me, and I have a great difficulty to get that cup of tea from you. If I have the language, tea, cup, and you have the language, it is very convenient. I said, can I have a cup of tea? That is a convenient reason. So the body we use is just simply for convenient reason. In reality, it is so many multi genes, atoms there, functioning very sometimes harmoniously, sometimes disharmoniously. They're just functioning like that. And on that, what we call body. Just as simple as that. But in our mind, we have this strange idea. Body is more than that. There's a something in this multi-gene. There's a something as a body. That's utterly wrong. Because there's nothing. The body is simply labeled on that for convenient reason. Okay. First we will have tea. Then we have a question and answer. Okay?